The morning sun rose over Luminara Prime, casting rainbow colors across the crystal towers. The Velothi people moved through their cities in peaceful silence, their bodies glowing softly like living gemstones. They had built this world over 3,000 years, turning it into a paradise where no one suffered and everyone lived in harmony. Kavrin stood at the top of the central spire, watching the people below. As an elder of the council, Kavrin had lived for 800 years and had never seen violence. The Velothi did not understand war. Their bodies were fragile, made of crystalline structures that could shatter from a simple fall. But their minds were brilliant. They had created art, music, and technology that made their world beautiful and comfortable. Everything changed when the ships appeared at first. The Velothi thought the strange vessels were explorers from another world. The Velothi had met other species before traders and scientists who came to exchange knowledge. The council sent friendly messages to the unknown ships, inviting them to land and share stories. The ships did not respond with words. They responded with fire. The first colony to fall was Bright Harbor, a coastal settlement of 50,000 Velothi. The alien ships descended like angry insects, their hulls covered in dark armor that looked like the shells of beetles. Creatures poured out massive things with too many legs and sharp claws. They moved as one, like a single mind controlling thousands of bodies. The Velothi of Bright Harbor tried to run. Their fragile bodies could not move fast enough. Within hours, the colony was silent. The crystal buildings stood empty, their walls stained with the dust of shattered VLATHI.news reached the council by evening. Kavrin watched the recordings with horror. The alien someone identified them as the Krell swarm from old galactic warnings, moved through the city taking everything. They consumed the power cores, stripped the buildings of metals, and left nothing behind but destruction. "We must evacuate the outer settlements," said Council Member Thren, their voice shaking with fear. "Bring everyone to the inner cities where we can protect them." "Protect them how?" another elder asked. "We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We don't even have the concept of fighting." The truth hung in the air like poison. The Velothi had evolved on a gentle world with no predators. They had never needed to defend themselves. Their civilization had grown in peace, and that peace had made them weak. More colonies fell over the following days. Crystal Shore, the Singing Gardens, New Haven. Each attack was the same. The Krell ships would arrive. The creatures would swarm out, and within hours, thousands of Velothi would be dead. The survivors fled toward the capital city, their people streaming along the roads in a river of fear. The council met in emergency session every day. They tried everything they could think of. They activated old defense shields, but the Krell ships simply waited until the power ran out. They tried to negotiate, sending messages of peace and offers of resources. The Krell did not respond. They tried to build weapons from their tools, but the Velothi had no knowledge of warfare. Their attempts created devices that barely worked. Kavrin stood before the council on the 10th day of the invasion. Half of their world was now under Krell control. Millions had died. The population centers were overflowing with refugees who had nowhere to go. "We cannot win this," Kavrin said quietly. "We are not warriors. We never have been. Our evolution did not prepare us for this. Then what do we do?" Thren asked. "Watch our people die? Wait for the end?" Kavrin was silent for a long moment. Then they spoke the words that would change everything. "We ask for help." The decision was not easy. The Velothi had always been proud of their independence. They had built their civilization without interference, without violence, without compromise. To ask for help meant admitting they could not save themselves. It meant inviting strangers into their world, trusting them with their survival. But pride meant nothing to the dead. The council voted. The decision was unanimous. They would send a message to every corner of the galaxy, broadcasting on all frequencies, reaching out to anyone who might listen. Kavrine personally wrote the message. They kept it simple and honest. This is Luminara Prime, home of the Velothi people. We are under attack by the Krell swarm. We are dying. We have no weapons, no warriors, no way to defend ourselves. We are asking anyone who can hear this message, please help us. We will give anything in return. Our knowledge, our resources, our technology. Please, we are begging. Help us survive. The message was broadcast into space, carried by powerful transmitters that sent it across the galaxy. Then the Velothi waited. Responses came slowly. The trading collective sent a polite message expressing sympathy, but they would not send military aid. They had treaties to consider, they said. The ascended minds, ancient beings of pure energy, sent a philosophical response about the nature of evolution and survival of the fittest. Smaller species sent prayers and good wishes, but no ships, no weapons, no help. Days passed. The Krell pushed deeper into Velothi territory. They were less than a week away from the capital city now. Refugees packed into every building. Food was running low. Power reserves were at 30%. KAVR. EN stood at the window of the council chamber, looking out at the frightened people below. They had failed. The message had not worked. No one was coming to save them. Then Thren burst into the room, their crystalline form flickering with excitement. Elder Kavrine. We received a response. From whom? Kavrine asked, trying not to hope. Unknown species. Not in our database. They call themselves humans. They say they are coming. They gave us an estimated arrival time 48 cycles. Kavrine felt something stir in their chest. Hope, perhaps. Or perhaps just the last desperate wish of a dying species. Did they say anything else? Thren nodded. Yes, the message was very short. It said, coordinates received. En route. Hold on. Kavrine looked out at their people. 48 cycles. Could they survive that long? Could they hold the Krell back for 7 more weeks? They had no choice. Help was coming from an unknown species called humans. The Velothi would have to trust them. They would have to survive until the strangers arrived. The next 7 weeks were the longest in Velothi history. Every day brought new challenges as the Krell swarm advanced slowly but steadily toward the capital city. The Velothi did everything they could to slow them down. They collapsed bridges, created barriers from broken buildings, and even tried to use their construction equipment as makeshift weapons. Nothing worked for long. Kavrine spent their days coordinating the defense and their nights watching the stars, hoping to see ships arriving. The mysterious humans had promised to come, but would they arrive in time? And what kind of species were they? The Velothi databases had no information about Earth or humans. They were complete unknowns. Thren became obsessed with finding information. They searched every galactic record, every trade manifest, every exploration log. Finally, on the 23rd day of waiting, they found something. It was a single entry in an old survey database, marked with a red warning symbol. Elder Kavrine, Thren said, their voice trembling. I found information about the human homeworld. You need to see this. Kavrine looked at the data on the screen. What they saw made their crystalline form go dark with fear. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating in the galactic survey system. The report described a planet of extreme conditions gravity, nearly twice what the Velothi considered normal. Temperatures that swung from freezing to boiling, violent weather patterns, and an atmosphere with dangerously high oxygen levels. But that was not the worst part. The planet was covered in predators, creatures that hunted and killed for survival. The oceans held monsters larger than Velothi buildings. The land held pack hunters that worked together to bring down prey. Even the small creatures were dangerous, carrying venom and disease. And at the top of this nightmare ecosystem were the humans themselves. They evolved as hunters, Thren said quietly. Look at their biology. Forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. Endurance running capability. They can chase animals until the prey dies from exhaustion. They can eat things that would poison most species. Their bodies can heal from injuries that would kill us instantly. Kavrin read through the report with growing dread. Humans had sharp teeth designed for tearing meat. They had hands they could grab and crush. Their bodies produced adrenaline, a chemical that made them stronger and faster during danger. They could survive on almost any world, because their own world had tried to kill them every single day, and they had won. What have we done? Kavrin whispered. We called for help, and we summoned Deathworlders. The Galactic Council had rules about Deathworld species. They were considered dangerous, unpredictable, and violent. Most civilized species avoided them. And now the Velothi had invited them to their peaceful world. The council met in emergency session again. The debate was fierce. Some argued they should cancel the request and tell the humans to stay away. Others pointed out that the Krell would kill them all within 2 weeks if nothing changed. At least the humans had offered to help. We know nothing about them, argued Elder Synthesis Morin. They could be worse than the Krell. They could enslave us, destroy us, take our world for themselves. The Krell are already destroying us, Kavrin replied. Every day we wait, thousands more die. The humans said they would help. We have to trust them. Trust Deathworlders? Morin's voice was sharp with fear. Species from that classification have never been known for mercy or kindness. They survive by being violent, aggressive, and ruthless. Kavrin had no answer to that. The fear in the council chamber was thick enough to feel. But what choice did they have? The Krell were 3 days away from the capital now. They had to try. On the 45th day, the scanners detected ships at the edge of the solar system. 15 vessels moving fast. They were built unlike anything the Velothi had seen, angular and aggressive, covered in armor plating and weapons. These were warships, designed for one purpose only, battle. The lead ship sent a communication request. Kavrin authorized it, their form flickering with nervousness. The screen activated, and for the first time, the Velothi saw human Admiral Sarah. Chon looked back at them through the view screen. She was tall compared to the Velothi, with smooth brown skin and dark hair pulled back from her face. But it was her eyes that caught Kavrin's attention. They were forward-facing, like a predator's, and they held an intelligence that was both reassuring and terrifying. When she spoke, her voice was calm and controlled. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of the United Nations Space Command, representing Earth and her colonies. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Kavrin tried to speak, but could not find words. They were looking at a creature from a death world, a species that had evolved fighting and killing. And she was offering help with the same calm tone someone might use to discuss the weather. Thank you, Kavrin finally managed. We are grateful. The Krell are very close now. We have perhaps 3 days before they reach our capital city. Chun nodded. We've been scanning the system since we arrived. We count approximately 400,000 Krell ground forces and 200 orbital ships. Those are manageable numbers. Manageable? Kavrin felt dizzy. Those numbers represented an overwhelming force that had crushed half their world. And this human called them manageable? Admiral Chun, Kavrin said carefully, we must be honest with you. We are afraid. We learned about your world, about what you are, your classification. We asked for help, but we did not understand what we were inviting. Chun's expression softened slightly. I understand. You're scared of us. That's reasonable. Yes, we're from Earth. Yes, it's a rough world. Yes, we're capable of violence. But here's what you need to know right now. We crossed a lot of space to get here because we heard someone calling for help. We could have ignored your message. We chose not to. Why? Thren asked from beside Kavrin. Why would you risk your people for strangers? Chun was quiet for a moment. Because someone has to. Because we remember what it was like to be helpless and scared. Because we can help, so we should. It's that simple. Kavrin wanted to believe her. But the reports about Deathworlders filled their mind with warnings and fears. Chun seemed to understand. I know you're scared, Chun said. Watch what we do in the next few days. Then decide if you were right to call us. My fleet will take up defensive positions around your capital. We'll need detailed maps of Krell positions and any intelligence you have. And Elder Kavrin, keep your people inside when the fighting starts. It's going to get loud. The transmission ended. Kavrin stood in silence, watching through the windows as the human fleet moved into position around their world. The ships were dark and powerful, bristling with weapons the Velothi could not identify. We have invited predators to our world, Morin said quietly. We can only hope they are on our side. Kavrin watched a human warship pass overhead, blotting out the stars. We will know soon enough. The Krell will be here in 3 days. Then we will see what Deathworlders can do. Fear and hope mixed together in Kavrin's chest. They had cried for help. The help had come from the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Now all they could do was wait and see if they had made the right choice or summoned their own. Destruction. The human ships moved into position with military precision that amazed and frightened the Velothi observers. Within hours, they had established a defensive perimeter around the capital city. Strange objects fell from the sky weapons platforms, sensor arrays, and devices the Velothi could not identify. Human soldiers in powered armor walked the streets, checking defensive positions and setting up equipment. Kavrin watched from the aft council tower as a squad of Marines passed below. The armor made them look even larger and more intimidating. Each suit was equipped with weapons, sensors, and tools. The humans moved with confidence, completely unafraid of the coming battle. One Marine looked up and waved at the tower. Kavrin jerked back from the window, startled by the casual gesture from a creature that could probably tear through the crystal walls with bare hands. Admiral Chun came down to the surface to meet with the council in person. She brought 2 guards with her, both in lighter armor than the Marines outside. When she entered the council chamber, she had to duck through the doorway. The humans were much taller than the Velothi had realized. Thank you for meeting with me, Chun said, her voice echoing slightly in the crystal room. I wanted to go over our defensive strategy and make sure you understand what's going to happen. She activated a holographic display showing the area around the capital. Red markers indicated Krell positions. Blue markers showed human forces. The Krell will arrive in approximately 60 hours, Chun explained. They'll expect to overrun your city the same way they took the others. They won't expect resistance. That's our advantage. We're going to let them start their attack, draw them in, then hit them from 3 sides simultaneously. Thren studied the display with confusion. You are not going to try to stop them before they reach the city? No. If we engage too early, they'll scatter and we'll spend weeks hunting them down. We need to concentrate their forces. Make them commit to the attack. Then we end it in one battle. Kavrin felt their form flicker with anxiety. You are using our city as bait? I'm using their expectations against them, Chun corrected gently. Your people will be safe in the shelters. We've reinforced the lower levels with shield generators. Even if Krell forces break through our lines, they won't reach the civilians. I promise you that. How can you promise? Morin asked, their voice sharp with fear. You are 15 ships against hundreds. A few thousand soldiers against hundreds of thousands of Krell. The mathematics do not make sense. Chun smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression that made Kavrin's crystalline structure resonate with instinctive fear. Elder Morin, you're thinking about this like the Valathi. You're looking at numbers and calculating odds. But war isn't mathematics. It's psychology, strategy, and controlled violence. The Krell are dangerous, but they're predictable. They swarm. They overwhelm. They rely on numbers. We've fought species like them before. On your world? Kavrin asked. On our world? On colony worlds, in deep space. Humans have been fighting for our entire existence. It's what we do. It's what we're unfortunately very good at. Chun's expression softened. I know that frightens you. But right now, that's exactly what you need. Over the next 2 days, Kavrin watched the humans prepare. They worked with an efficiency that seemed impossible. They set up artillery positions on the high ground surrounding the city. They planted mines in the approaches. They established kill zones with overlapping fields of fire. Every placement was calculated, every position chosen for maximum effectiveness. But what disturbed Kavrin most was how comfortable the humans seemed with all of it. They joked while loading ammunition. They ate meals next to weapon systems. They checked their armor and guns with the same casual ease the Valathi used to tune musical instruments. Violence was normal to them. Expected. Just another part of life. Kavrin found themselves standing next to a young Marine who was checking a large gun mounted on a tripod. The Marine noticed them and nodded politely. Morning, Elder. Everything okay? I am trying to understand, Kavrin said quietly. You are so young. You cannot be more than 20 cycles old. Yet you stand here preparing for battle as if it is nothing. The Marine her nameplate read Rodriguez shrugged. It's my job. I'm a Marine. This is what I signed up for. But why? Why would anyone choose this life? Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, adjusting a setting on her weapon. My home colony got hit by raiders when I was 15. Pirates looking for easy targets. A lot of people died before help arrived. I decided then that I wanted to be the help that shows up. So when I turned 18, I enlisted. She patted the gun affectionately. Now I get to be the scary one instead of the scared one. Kavrin thought about that conversation as they returned to the council chamber. The humans had not evolved as peaceful beings. Their entire history was war, survival, and violence. But they had learned to direct that violence toward protection. At least, that was what Kavrin hoped. The Krell arrived right on schedule, 60 hours after the human fleet had taken position. Their ships descended in a dark cloud, blocking out the sun. The ground shook as hundreds of landing craft touched down around the city. The swarm poured out hundreds of thousands of chitinous warriors, each one covered in natural armor and equipped with sharp claws and acidic spit. Kavrin and the other council members watched from the reinforced observation room deep underground. The displays showed multiple camera feeds from around the city. The Krell advanced in a massive wave, exactly as they had in every previous attack. They expected no resistance. They expected to sweep through and consume everything. Admiral Chun's voice came over the communication system. Calm and controlled. All units, this is Chun. Krell forces are advancing into the engagement zone. Hold positions. Wait for my command. The Krell came closer. They were 200 meters from the city walls now. 100 meters. 50 meters. Kavrin could see them clearly on the screen's massive creatures with multiple limbs, moving as a single coordinated mass. All units, Chun said. Light them up. The world exploded. Artillery shells fell from the sky like deadly rain. Explosions ripped through the Krell formations, throwing bodies into the air. Machine guns opened fire from concealed positions, tracers cutting bright lines through the swarm. Mines detonated in carefully planned sequences, creating walls of fire and shrapnel. The Krell tried to charge forward, but the humans had created a kill zone. Every meter of ground was covered by multiple weapon systems. Krell warriors fell by the hundreds, by the thousands. Those that made it through the artillery ran into the marine positions. Kavrin watched in horrified fascination as the humans fought. The Marines moved with practiced efficiency, firing in controlled bursts, falling back to prepared positions, coordinating their fire to maximize casualties. When Krell warriors got close enough for melee combat, the humans did not run. They fought hand to hand, their powered armor giving them strength to match the aliens. One Marine's armor was breached by a Krell warrior's claws. The Marine fell, and Kavrin thought they were dead. But the human got back up, drew a combat knife, and kept fighting despite the injury. They killed 3 more Krell before another Marine pulled them back to safety. "They are insane," Morin whispered, watching the displays. "That human should be dead. How are they still fighting?" Thren's voice was equally shocked. "Their medical readings show massive trauma, but they refuse to stop. It is as if pain does not affect them the same way." Admiral Chun's voice came through again. "Northern Artillery, shift fire to coordinates Delta 7. Air support, I need a strike on the Krell command cluster. Marines, prepare to advance on my mark. Advance?" The Krell still outnumbered the humans 10-1, and Chun wanted to advance. But that was exactly what happened. On Chun's command, the Marine lines moved forward, pushing into the Krell swarm. They used grenades, flamethrowers, and weapons that fired explosive rounds. The Krell tried to respond, but they were designed for overwhelming weak prey. They had never fought a species that could match their aggression and exceed their violence. From orbit, the human warships fired precisely targeted strikes at the Krell landing ships, destroying their reinforcements and escape route. On the ground, human tanks rolled forward, crushing Krell warriors beneath, armored treads while firing cannons that tore through even the thickest alien armor. The battle lasted 12 hours. When it ended, the ground around the capital city was covered in Krell bodies. The few survivors fled into the wilderness, pursued by human hunter-killer teams. The massive Krell invasion force had been destroyed. Kavrin stood in the council chamber, looking at the aftermath displayed on the screens. The humans had won. They had saved the Velathi. But the price of that salvation was written in the scorched earth and shattered bodies surrounding the city. "They saved us," Thren said quietly. "The Deathworlders saved us." Kavrin watched as human medics treated wounded Marines with the same gentle care they used with injured Velathi civilians. Hands that had crushed Krell warriors now carefully bandaged wounds and administered medicine. "Yes," Kavrin said, "but now we must live with them. And I am not sure which frightens me more, the Krell who wanted to destroy us, or the humans who can destroy anything they choose." The days after the battle were strange and difficult for the Velathi. Their world had been saved, but everything felt different now. Human soldiers patrolled the streets of the capital. Human ships orbited overhead. The gentle peace that had defined Luminara Prime for 3,000 years was gone, replaced by the constant reminder of military presence. Kavrin walked through the city, observing the changes. The humans had set up medical stations to treat wounded Velathi. They distributed food and supplies from their ships. They even helped rebuild damaged structures, using their powerful machinery to lift materials that would have taken Velathi crews weeks to move. But despite their helpfulness, the Velathi people were afraid. Children hid when human soldiers walked past. Adults gave them wide berth, pressing themselves against walls to avoid getting close. The Valathi had never seen violence before the Krell came. Now they had watched humans fight with a brutality that still haunted their dreams. They knew the humans had saved them. They just could not forget how they had done it. Admiral Chun noticed the fear. She requested a meeting with the council to discuss it. "I understand your people are uncomfortable with us," Chun said, standing before the assembled elders. "That's natural. We're different from you in fundamental ways. But we need to address this if we're going to help you rebuild. With respect, Admiral," Elder Morin said, "you cannot expect us to simply forget what we saw. Your people fought with such violence, such brutality. One of your Marines continued fighting after being injured severely enough to kill any Valathi. We watched humans laugh while loading weapons designed to kill thousands. This is not normal to us. This is nightmare behavior." Chun nodded slowly. "You're right. To you, it probably looked like madness. But I need you to understand something about humans. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. Our ancestors survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and natural disasters that would have ended most disease. We learned to fight, to endure, to push through pain and fear, because stopping meant death. But you are no longer on that world," Kavrine said. "You have advanced technology, space travel, comfort. Why do you still act like hunted animals?" Chun smiled sadly. "Because it's in our DNA now. Millions of years of evolution don't disappear just because we invented computers. But here's what you're missing. That same hardness that frightens you is what let us cross half the galaxy to help strangers. That same capacity for violence is what saved your people. We chose to use it to protect instead of conquer. That choice matters." She pulled up a display showing human history cities, art, music, literature. "We're not just warriors. We create beauty. We write poetry. We build gardens. We love our children and cry at sad stories. We're complicated. Yes, we can be violent, but we can also be kind. Both things are true." The council absorbed this in silence. Thren spoke next, their voice uncertain. "How do we know you will not decide to use that violence against us? You could conquer our world easily. We have nothing that could stop you." "You're right, you don't," Chun admitted. "You have to trust us. That's the hard part. But think about this, we could have ignored your distress call. It cost us time, resources, and the lives of 15 Marines to come here. We gained nothing, except knowing we helped someone who needed it. That has to count for something." Over the following weeks, the humans worked to prove themselves. They were patient with the fearful Valathi. When children ran for Marines, the Marines smiled and waved, but kept their distance. When Valathi adults seemed nervous, human soldiers made themselves smaller, less threatening. They learned Valathi customs and tried to respect them. Kavrine watched a human medic named Dr. Sarah Kim working in the medical center. She treated Valathi patients with incredible gentleness, her large hands carefully administering medication to their fragile crystalline bodies. A young Valathi child had been brought in with cracks in their structure from stress and malnutrition during the Krell occupation. "Hey there, little one," Dr. Kim said softly. "I'm going to help you feel better, okay? This might tingle a bit, but it won't hurt." The child's parents stood nearby, clearly afraid but desperate for help. Dr. Kim noticed and spoke gently to them as well. "I know I look scary. I'm big, and I'm from a weird world. But I promise I'm going to take very good care of your child. I have a daughter about this age back on Earth. I know how precious they are." She worked carefully, applying a healing compound that would help seal the cracks. Her movements were slow and deliberate, giving the child time to get used to her presence. By the end of the treatment, the child was no longer hiding behind their parent. "Thank you, Dr. Kim," the parent said quietly. "I apologize for my fear." "You are very kind." "No need to apologize," Kim replied with a warm smile. "Fear is natural. Trust has to be earned. Just give us time." Kavrine witnessed more moments like this. A Marine named Jackson helping an elderly Valathi move rubble from their damaged home. An engineer named Torres teaching young Valathi how to repair their power grid. A pilot named Chun no relation to the admiral playing simple games with Valathi children, making them laugh for the first time since the invasion. But the fear did not disappear completely. It could not. The humans were still too different, too dangerous. And then something happened that changed everything. A group of Krell survivors had been hiding in the northern wilderness. They had regrouped, maybe 3,000 of them, and decided to make one final attack. They chose a small Valathi settlement that was isolated from the main human forces, an easy target. Or so they thought. The attack came at night. The Krell moved in quietly, trying to replicate their earlier successes. They got within 200 meters of the settlement before the humans detected them. Kavrine listened to the radio communications as the situation unfolded. A single squad of human Marines, 12 soldiers, stood between 3,000 Krell and 2,000 Valathi civilians. The squad leader, Sergeant Maria Santos, reported to Admiral Chun. "Ma'am, we have Krell forces advancing on Settlement 7, approximately 3,000 hostiles. My squad is the only unit in range, requesting immediate air support and reinforcements." "Reinforcements are 20 minutes out," Chun replied. "Air support 15 minutes. Can you hold?" There was a pause. Then Santos responded, her voice absolutely calm. "Ma'am, there are 2,000 civilians in this settlement. We'll hold. Send the cavalry when you can." Santos out. Kavrine pulled up the video feeds from Settlement 7 with shaking hands. 12 humans against 3,000 Krell. The mathematics were impossible. The Marines would die. And then the Krell would kill everyone in the settlement. But the Marines did not run. They took positions around the settlement and opened fire. Their weapons lit up the night, cutting down Krell warriors by the dozens. But there were too many. The Krell kept coming, climbing over their own dead to reach the humans. A Krell warrior broke through the line and charged into the settlement. Kavrine watched in horror as it raised its claws to strike a Valathi family. Then Sergeant Santos was there, her armor damaged and sparking, one arm hanging useless at her side. She tackled the Krell warrior, wrestling it to the ground despite her injuries, and killed it with her combat knife. "Civilians to the shelters." Santos shouted, "Move! Move!" She stood at the entrance to the shelter, blocking it with her own body as more Krell approached. Another Marine, wounded and bleeding, joined her. Then another. They formed a wall of armor and flesh between the civilians and death. Kavrine could hear Sergeant Santos on the radio. Her breathing labored, her voice strained with pain. "Chun, this is Santos. We've taken heavy casualties. Martinez is down. Patel is down. The Krell are breaking through. We need that air support now." 3 minutes out, came the response. "Copy that. We'll be here." The Marines fought with everything they had. When their guns ran empty, they used knives. When their armor failed, they used their bare hands. 3 of them died protecting the shelter entrance. The others were all wounded, but they did not move. They did not retreat. They stood their ground because behind them were people who could not fight for themselves. The air support arrived 2 minutes and 43 seconds later. Human gunships swept over the settlement, destroying the remaining Krell with devastating precision. The battle was over. Of the 12 Marines, 3 were dead. 7 were critically wounded. 2 had injuries that would have killed most species, but were walking around helping civilians. Sergeant Santos was among the critically wounded, but she had refused medical evacuation until every civilian was accounted for. Kavrine traveled to Settlement 7 immediately. They found Sergeant Santos in the medical tent, covered in bandages, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily. Dr. Kim was treating her with the same gentle care she showed everyone. "Sergeant Santos," Kavrine said quietly, "why did you not retreat? You could have pulled back, saved yourselves, waited for reinforcements." Santos looked at Kavrine with tired eyes. "And let the Krell slaughter those civilians? No, that's not who we are. We protect people. That's the job. But you nearly died. 3 of your soldiers did die." "Yeah," Santos said softly. "They knew the risks. We all did. But those 2,000 Velathi are alive because we stood our ground. That's what matters. That's why we came all this way." Kavrine felt something shift inside them. The humans were dangerous, yes. They were violent and brutal and capable of terrible things. But they had chosen to use those terrible capabilities to protect the helpless. They had stood between death and innocence, knowing they would probably die, and they had done it anyway. "Thank you, Sergeant," Kavrine said. "Not just for the battle, for showing us who you truly are." Santos smiled weakly. "We're Deathworlders, Elder. We're scary as hell. But we're your Deathworlders now, and we take care of our own." 3 months after the Battle of Settlement 7, Luminara Prime was healing. The Krell were gone, hunted down by human forces and eliminated as a threat. The cities were being rebuilt. Refugees were returning to their homes. Life was slowly becoming normal again, though it was a different kind of normal than before. Kavrine stood at the window of the rebuilt council chamber, looking out at the capital city. Human soldiers still patrolled the streets, but now Velathi children waved to them instead of hiding. The Marines waved back, sometimes stopping to show curious youngsters their equipment or share ration packs. The fear had not completely disappeared, but it had transformed into something else. Cautious friendship, perhaps. Mutual respect. Admiral Chun had requested a formal meeting with the council. It was time to discuss the future. What would happen now that the Krell threat was ended? The council gathered in the chamber, all of them present. Chun arrived with her usual escort, but this time she brought someone else. Sergeant Santos, recovered from her injuries, though still bearing visible scars, stood beside her. "Thank you for meeting with me," Chun began. "I wanted to discuss our next steps. The Krell are gone. Your world is secure. My fleet could leave now, if that's what you want." The council members looked at each other. Morin spoke first. "Is that what you recommend, Admiral?" "That you leave?" Chun shook her head. "No, the galaxy is a dangerous place. The Krell weren't the only threat out there. You've seen that now. You asked for help once, and we came, but it took us 7 weeks to arrive. 7 weeks where you had to survive on your own. What happens if something else attacks, and we're not close enough to help? What are you proposing?" Thren asked. "A permanent alliance. A human garrison remains on Luminara Prime. We train your people in basic self-defense. We help you develop early warning systems and defensive capabilities. In exchange, you share your technology and knowledge with us. We become partners." The council chamber fell silent. This was a massive decision. The Velathi had been independent for their entire history. To accept a permanent military presence, to ally themselves with Deathworlders, would change their civilization forever. "You want to turn us into warriors," Morin said, their voice tight. "You want to make us like you." "No," Santos spoke up, her voice firm. "We want to make sure you can protect yourselves. There's a difference. You'll never be warriors like us. Your bodies aren't built for it, and honestly, you shouldn't want to be. War isn't something to aspire to. But you can learn to defend your homes. You can learn to recognize threats and respond to them. You can survive. Chun nodded. We're not asking you to become human. We're asking you to become stronger Velothi. Keep your culture, your values, your peaceful nature, but add the ability to protect all of that when necessary. Kavarin thought about the past months. They thought about the Krell invasion and how helpless the Velothi had been. They thought about Sergeant Santos standing wounded at a shelter entrance, refusing to abandon civilians. They thought about Dr. Kim's gentle hands treating frightened children. They thought about the young Marine Rodriguez, who had chosen to become the help that shows up. What would this alliance look like? Kavarin asked. Chun activated a holographic display. Human military base here, on the northern continent, away from your major population centers. Joint Defense Command structure. Training programs for Velothi volunteers, nothing mandatory. Technology exchange programs. Cultural exchange. Basically, we live side by side and learn from each other. And if we refuse? Thren asked. If we ask you to leave? Then we leave, Chun said simply. We'd station a rapid response fleet within 2 weeks' travel, close enough to help if you call again. But we wouldn't force our presence on you. That's not who we are. The council debated for hours. The arguments were passionate. Some elders feared that accepting human presence would corrupt Velothi culture. Others argued that rejecting the alliance would leave them vulnerable. The discussion went in circles until Kavarin stood and spoke. I have spent 3 months watching the humans, Kavarin said. I have seen them fight, and I have seen them help. I have watched them destroy our enemies and heal our wounded. They are everything we feared: violent, dangerous, capable of terrible destruction. But they are also everything we needed: brave, loyal, willing to sacrifice themselves for others. Kavarin paused, looking at each council member. We were wrong about something fundamental. We believed that peace and strength could not coexist. We thought we had to choose between being gentle and being safe. The humans have shown us that we were wrong. They are both. They carry weapons and flowers. They know how to kill and how to heal. They are complex in ways we never imagined. What are you saying? Morin asked. I am saying that we called for help and help came. The humans could have ignored us. They could have conquered us. Instead, they protected us and asked nothing in return except the chance to help us become stronger. We would be fools to reject that gift out of fear. The vote was taken. 8 elders voted for the alliance. 3 voted against. It was decided. Chun extended her hand toward Kavarin, a human gesture of agreement. Kavarin reached out carefully, their crystalline appendage touching Chun's skin. It was warm, soft, and strong. So different from their own structure, yet not threatening. Just different. Welcome to the galactic community, Chun said with a smile. The real one, where people look out for each other. The months that followed were challenging but rewarding. A human base was constructed in the northern wilderness, far from Velothi cities, but close enough to respond to emergencies. 200 Marines volunteered to stay permanently, becoming the garrison force. Among them were Santos Rodriguez and several others who had fought in the initial battles. The training program started slowly. Only 50 Velothi volunteered, at first mostly young people, who had lost family to the Krell and wanted to ensure it never happened again. The humans were patient teachers. They understood that the Velothi would never be warriors like them, so they focused on practical skills. How to recognize threats. How to use communication systems. How to organize evacuations. Basic self-defense techniques adapted for crystalline bodies. Kavarin often visited the training facility to observe. They watched Velothi students learning alongside human instructors, both species learning from each other. A human sergeant would teach tactics, while a Velathi engineer would explain efficient resource management. The exchange went both ways, but the most important changes were cultural. Human families started coming to Luminara Prime spouses and children of the garrison Marines. They opened restaurants serving Earth food. Schools where human and Velathi children learned together. Cultural centers where both species shared their arts and music. One day, Kavrine was walking through the market district when they saw something that made them stop. A Velathi child was showing a human child how to create light patterns in a crystal. The human child was laughing, delighted by the rainbow colors. A few stalls away, a human woman was teaching Velathi adults how to cook Earth cuisine. Both groups were having fun, sharing their cultures without fear. Dr. Kim approached, carrying a bag of Velathi crystal fruit she had bought from a local vendor. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Kim said, gesturing at the scene. "A few months ago, your people were terrified of us. Now look at them." "You have been very patient with us," Kavrine said. "Of course. Trust takes time. You had every reason to fear us. We look like monsters from a nightmare world. But you gave us a chance to prove we were more than that. Thank you for that." Kavrine watched a human child playing with Velathi children, all of them running and laughing together. "I was so afraid when you first arrived. Afraid you would hurt us, or change us, or destroy what we were. Did we?" Kim asked gently. Kavrine considered the question. The Velathi were different now. They had walls and weapons where once they had only gardens. They had soldiers training on their peaceful world. They had allied themselves with predators from a death world. Everything had changed, but they were also alive. Their civilization continued. Their children played in safe streets. Their art and music still flourished. They had not become human. They had become Velathi who could defend themselves. "No," Kavrine said finally. "You saved what we were. You gave us the strength to protect our gentleness, our peace, our culture. That is a gift beyond price." A year after the first human ships arrived, the Velathi Council hosted a ceremony. They unveiled a memorial in the center of the capital city, a crystal sculpture showing a human and a Velathi standing together. At the base were engraved the names of every human who had died defending Luminara Prime. 18 names total. 18 humans who had crossed the galaxy to help strangers and never made it home. Admiral Chun stood before the memorial, her hand resting on Santas's shoulder. The sergeant had tears in her eyes as she looked at the names of her fallen squad members. "They believed in this," Chun said quietly. "They believed that the strong should protect the weak. That having power meant you had a responsibility to help those who didn't. They died for that belief. And I'd like to think they'd be proud of what we've built here." Kavrine approached and stood beside them. "They will never be forgotten. We will tell their stories to our children and our children's children. The humans who answered our cry for help. The Deathworlders who chose compassion over conquest. News of the Alliance spread through the galaxy. Other species watched with interest. Some were horrified that the gentle Velathi had allied with humans. Others were intrigued. The Velathi received messages from several smaller species asking about the humans, wondering if they could be trusted. Kavren always gave the same answer. They are dangerous. They are violent. They come from a world that would kill most of us in minutes. But they are also kind, loyal, and brave. They will fight to their last breath to protect those weaker than themselves. They are exactly what they appear to be, Deathworlders. And if you are in trouble, there is no one else in the galaxy you would rather have on your side. 2 years after the Krell invasion, Kavrine stood in the same spot where they had first watched the human ships arrive. But now, looking at their world, they saw something different. They saw Velathi and humans working together, building a stronger future. They saw their people learning to protect themselves while keeping their gentle nature. They saw proof that fear and hope could coexist, that different species could find common ground. The Valathi had cried for help. Fear had followed when they learned what was coming. But the Deathworlders had arrived. And they had been exactly what the galaxy needed. Monsters who chose to be heroes, warriors who fought for peace, predators who protected the prey. Kavrine's crystalline form pulsed with a warm light, the Valathi expression of contentment. Their world was safe. Their people were strong. And their unlikely alliance with humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous beings could also be the most noble. The Deathworlders had come. And in coming, they had given the Valathi something more precious than safety. They had given them hope.